we are in a form of state of war. It's not full-blown war, but there is a major war happening on the European soil, and we need to shift the mindset from a post-Cold War peace mindset to a kind of readiness one. So the argument that you do need to put 500,000 new young men and women under the British flag to prepare for a possible contingency is I think, quite logical here. However, you have to look at what it means, because obviously having a new sort of military service in Britain, as in other countries, has a huge cost. And also means you need to house these people, you need to pay these people, to feed them, to train them. And you have to make a decision as to whether this is where you want to put your defense money, your defense budget money, which, as we know, is increasing, but is still quite difficult to maintain, into having a lot of young, half well-trained soldiers, or having better equipment and better paid and trained professional soldiers. So here there's a trade-off, and I think every government has to do their math and to see what really makes sense.
You talk about a large cost, but does it also have positive advantages to introduce something like this? Employment, I suppose, purpose, enterprise, even the possibility of doing things domestically when we're not on a war footing that might contribute to quality of life or quality of society in the UK or whatever country chooses to do this.
Yes, I mean, you're right. There is also it's a boost to a form of patriotic commitment, and to not only a commitment to your own country, but also to security writ large in the NATO community. So I think from a political value point of view, it's a good thing to do. That's why in France, actually, they have not reinstated the military service, but they have reinstated under President Macron a form of civil service to kind of give more national values to the younger generation. However, again, you need to see where you spend your British pound and what you get out of it in terms of defense. And again, if this means you have to commit too much of your defense budget to train and feed and house a lot of young people, instead of having the right kind of capabilities to defend your airspace, your maritime domain, then I think you need to think hard about, beyond the headline and the feel-good announcement.
Just finally, you're talking about sort of modern weaponry there, and I did wonder whether the burgeoning number of remotely controlled weapons of destruction, drones and missiles and so on, whether you think that that's having any impact in terms of leaders' preparedness to use them, a sense that perhaps you'd think more about it if you were sending, young men and women into battle. But if you can drop a drone, then perhaps it feels less consequential.
Well, of course, committing your own citizens to harm and to war is probably the most difficult decision for an elected leader. So, of course, there are a lot of thoughts that have to go into that. But I will not say that I think, from my experience, leaders don't use even remotely controlled weapon systems lightly, because there's a legal burden that comes with it, where you have to demonstrate that this is you exerting self-defense, be it on your territory or extraterritorial. So I do think there's still, especially on us democracies, that legal burden that matters to demonstrate that we are not acting with impunity, but we're acting respecting international law, especially vis-a-vis adversaries like Russia or China.
Just finally, Mike, I beg your pardon, has written in and asked a question. I don't know the answer to it. Would a civilian army count towards the NATO commitment for spending 2% of GDP on defence? Surely not, he's asking. Can you answer that?
It's a good question. I think we should look to the Finns, Finland, that is a new NATO member, who also have this civilian self-defense force. I will think that it depends where the budget is. If it falls under the MOD budget, it could be actually part of the 2%, or if it falls under the Ministry of Interior or other kind of budgets, I guess it falls outside.